Hello, welcome. Today I want to tell you about my story about LADA diabetes. LADA diabetes is a lesser known form of diabetes. It stands for Latent Autoimmune Diabetes in adults. And I'm hoping that by sharing my story that there'll be more awareness about LADA diabetes. It's often misdiagnosed as type 2 diabetes, which can really delay proper treatment and also cause mental health problems as people try their very best to control their blood sugar. But without proper diagnosis and treating the cause of the diabetes, it can really cause years of suffering. So I hope today that I will be able to provide some insight into LADA diabetes, which is also called referred to as type 1.5 diabetes sometimes. It's really a type of type 1 diabetes, an autoimmune condition. My name is Linnea May Huxford. I am the author of the book Success with LADA Diabetes, Achieving Optimal Health with Diet, Exercise, and Insulin. I also write about diabetes and mental health on my website, insulinpumplife.com. I published the book under my nickname, Lynn May, and it's a very personal story, so I thought I wanted some privacy, but now I'm at a point where I feel like there's more to gain by combining my identities. I'm a software engineer by day, and I'm a diabetes advocate, and I write about diabetes and mental health. And there's more to gain to be open about everything than to hide any of it. The story really starts, it starts before 2014, but 2014 comes to mind as when I was really feeling sick and what led to my diabetes diagnosis. So I was on vacation in upstate New York with my family. We walked the beautiful Watkins Glen Gorge. It's like 500 stone steps. It's beautiful. There's waterfalls. It was a great time, but except for that, I was feeling very ill. I didn't feel good. I thought maybe I'm just getting old, but I was only 30 years old, not really that old at all. But my legs ached a lot. And then back at the hotel room, I was so thirsty, drinking lots of water and peeing and just really not feeling good. And I was wondering what's going on with me. And that's what happened. And then I realized I still was thirsty. I was home and thinking this over. Why do I feel sick? And I realized I had the classic symptoms of diabetes: very thirsty, frequent urination, feeling tired and weak, and losing weight without trying. That year leading up to diagnosis, I lost 20 pounds without changing my diet at all. I was literally losing weight because I was sick, because my body wasn't being able to make use of the food I was eating. And so I knew a fair bit about diabetes already because I had a family member of type 2 diabetes. So I knew how to use a blood glucose meter. So I got a blood glucose meter from the pharmacy, and I checked my blood sugar with a drop of blood. And my memory is my blood glucose was about 385 milligrams per deciliter, which is very high. It was shockingly high. I'm very lucky that I didn't get so ill that I had to go to the hospital. It's a dangerous condition to have blood glucose that high. There's a life-threatening condition called diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA. So if you have blood glucose this high, seek treatment immediately. I'm very, very lucky that I didn't need hospitalization, or that my life was not in danger, because the blood glucose was out of control. What I did was I went to my primary care physician, and she did an A1C blood test, which provides a measurement of how your blood glucose has been doing over about the last 3 months. And my A1C was 11.5, which is off the charts. As you can see, under 6 is normal. So it was very high. That confirmed that I had diabetes. And so my doctor She treated me as somebody with type 2 diabetes, which probably the most patients that she saw with diabetes had type 2. So she prescribed metformin, a very common medication for diabetes. And I started taking the metformin. And then also I decided to go on a very low carb diet. So, and also increase my exercise, because both of those things can help with controlling blood glucose. And I knew that carbohydrates, foods, which are foods like bread, pasta, rice, that those can cause blood sugar to go up really quickly and have a big impact on blood sugar. And with somebody who has diabetes, your body isn't able to handle the carbohydrates. So I immediately stopped eating carbs, and I added more exercise. And like even with all that effort, it took like 3 to 4 weeks, and then my blood glucose started to come down a bit. I remember being very strict in what I was eating. Like, I was at a restaurant shortly after diagnosis, and I got a lovely omelet with vegetables and stuff, and then there was that buttermilk biscuit, and I really wanted the buttermilk biscuit, but I was so afraid of my blood sugar being so high that I didn't have the biscuit. And so this combination here, it worked for a while. Looking at that graph again, you can see that my blood glucose did get better over the next few years. It never got to normal, but it got to almost 7, which is sort of like it's an acceptable amount of control with somebody with diabetes. But I was trying my best, trying to lower that blood sugar as much as possible, and it just wasn't working. In fact, in 2017, despite the metformin and the really strict diet, my blood glucose started to climb again. And so I had to go back to the doctor, and I wasn't feeling good about this. I was like, what am I doing wrong? So like many people, I was misdiagnosed. Studies say that between 10 and 20% of everybody who's diagnosed with type 2 are actually misdiagnosed, and that they may have LADA diabetes, this autoimmune condition, which has a different root cause. Your body is attacking itself, and your body is not producing enough insulin. So it's a very different cause than type 2 diabetes, and it needs different treatment. So when the metformin stopped working, I went back to my doctor, and first she prescribed glipizide, another type 2 diabetes medication. This one's called a sulfonylurea, which is a medication that's actually not recommended for people with LADA diabetes because it can add additional strain onto the pancreas. So this medication wasn't good for me. It also didn't work. I only took it a little while. And when that didn't work, she prescribed insulin, basal insulin. So basal insulin, it worked. It was a once-a-day injection. So usually you take insulin through injections or an insulin pump. You can't take it with a pill. It doesn't work that way. So I had to learn how to use an insulin syringe, and that actually wasn't too bad. However, she prescribed the wrong size. I needed a very small amount of insulin, and because the syringes she prescribed were larger, then it was hard for me to measure it out accurately, making dosing difficult. I did seek out a referral to an endocrinologist. So an endocrinologist is a doctor who specializes in hormonal conditions like diabetes. I highly recommend seeing a specialist. The endocrinologist knew exactly what to do to do the right blood tests to find out what kind of diabetes do I have. She did a C-peptide test, which indicated that my body wasn't making the right amount of insulin. And also, she ordered a diabetes autoantibodies panel, which included testing for the GAD antibody. And the GAD antibody is the test that can help determine if somebody has type 1 diabetes or LADA diabetes, because usually that's high in those conditions. And that confirmed that I have LADA diabetes treated as type 1, and I need insulin, because that's the problem, is my body's not producing enough insulin. So finally, I got the right treatment. Let's step back a little bit and talk about this. I don't know if it's actually orange, but in this drawing it's orange, but the pancreas is an odd-shaped organ right behind the stomach. If you know if it's orange or not, let me know, because I'm very curious. There's a lot of interesting history here with the pancreas, actually. But it's an organ behind the stomach, and it produces insulin in these cells called the beta cells. Now, insulin, everybody needs insulin to survive. It's like the key to unlock the glucose, so the glucose can go in your cells and you can use the energy from food. Everybody needs insulin. Insulin's only produced in the beta cells in the pancreas. There's one specialized area in your body. That's the only place it's produced. The pancreas also produces some other hormones and also some digestive enzymes. So if you have diabetes, if you have type 1 diabetes, you're not making enough insulin because your body has attacked your beta cells, and your beta cells are not all doing well and they're not all producing insulin. So normally, your body produces the insulin you need over the course of the day. It'll increase the amount of insulin if your blood sugar is high, or if it's starting to go up, so it can keep your blood sugar in just the right level over time. But that was not happening for me. So I got insulin, and this is a picture of an insulin pen, a Junior Quick pen, and I point this out because in these early stages of LADA diabetes, I was really sensitive to insulin, so I needed a relatively small amount. And I already mentioned it's hard to dose insulin. And a lot of insulin syringes and insulin pens only provide 1 unit increments. So this one, which is made for children who are also insulin sensitive, allows you to dose half units. So this worked for me because I could dose a half a unit for a snack or 1.5 units for a meal. At the time, this was the low amounts of insulin that my body needed. And this solved the issue. I could inject some insulin and eat food, and my blood glucose was much better controlled. So I was giving myself the insulin that my body wasn't producing. With insulin came the problem of needing to test my blood glucose often. So it was challenging because low blood sugar would cause anxiety. And anxiety, if you get too much blood sugar, if you get too much insulin, then your blood sugar can drop dangerously so much so that it can be a severe problem. It can be life-threatening. So if I'm starting to feel anxious, I need to know, is my blood sugar low, or am I just having normal anxiety? And to find out, was my blood sugar low, I needed to do a finger prick to get a blood drop to test using a glucose meter. The glucose meter showed a single number, no trends. So I didn't know how fast it was dropping. It's limited. Glucose meters are great, but there's one moment in time only. And then what would happen is I would eat something with sugar in it to correct my blood glucose, and then maybe I would overcorrect, and then my blood glucose would stay high for hours. On high blood glucose, prolonged high blood glucose causes all kinds of problems, so it's not good. Low and high are both not good. So you're trying to keep your blood glucose right in the middle, right in the right range all the time. And it's tricky. It's a really tricky thing to do. What really helped me, and great piece of technology, is a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. Incredibly insightful. It lets you see what's happening in real time. And here's a picture of the Freestyle Libre glucose meter. And it shows your glucose is going, it says glucose going low. How a CGM works is there's a very tiny piece of, I think it's a gold-plated strip that goes right under your skin. It's very tiny. And what happens is the glucose interacts with the gold on that strip, and then the rate of interaction allows the device to calculate what your current glucose is in the fluid right under your skin there. And that is a proxy for blood glucose number. So you can watch your glucose in real time on a graph and see, is it going up or is it going down, which is for me, when I'd be like, well, I do an insulin shot. Is it the right amount of insulin? Let's see. You can see it on a graph. And then it can warn you if your glucose is going to go too low, and it can also sound an alarm if your glucose is too high. So a CGM, immensely valuable, and it also provided so much information because it would tell me if I ate, like, how do I respond to food? Some food would change my blood glucose quickly. I would need more insulin or need to do insulin earlier. and other foods would change it slowly. Multiple daily injections, MDI. So this was essentially what I was doing. That's what it's called, and it's a very common treatment for type 1 diabetes, which LADA is a form of type 1 diabetes. It was very empowering because I finally had the tools to lower my blood sugar. I no longer just had to take some pills and exercise and try not to eat much and hope for the best. I was no longer thinking it was my fault for having high blood sugar. I knew that my body needed the insulin. I was able to give the insulin to myself. However, injections are challenging. Getting the insulin dosage right is difficult. And most foods require an insulin shot, so it can be restrictive. Do you want to eat now? Okay, you want to take your insulin now. I mean, you can see how that's not always the happiest time. It definitely changes how you think about food. So multiple daily injections, a very common way to treat diabetes. I've since then switched to using an insulin pump, which I think is a much better choice if you can afford it. I mean, for me, I can only speak about myself. It allows me to spend less time thinking about my diabetes, and my A1C is better, and my blood glucose does really well. And it is also much more natural because I can eat multiple times a day and I don't have to stop for an injection. It handles that automatically. So it will even do auto corrections, which is what it's showing here. It's connected to a CGM. It sees what my blood glucose is, and then it increases the insulin or decreases the insulin, which also means that I don't get low blood sugar. So the dangerous low blood sugar doesn't happen. Insulin pumps are amazing. This is the Medtronic MiniMed 780G insulin pump. And I'm going to do another video about insulin pumps as well. So if you're interested about this insulin pump, stay tuned. So now I spend less time thinking about my diabetes and more time just enjoying my life. But I do write about this insulin pump and my experiences at insulinpumplife.com. And you can see here also that another auto correction where it's giving me insulin automatically, and also alert before low, where it's telling me my blood sugar might go low and it's warning me about it, and says check BG, which means check my blood glucose to see if the CGM is right. So yeah, there's technology, the use of the technology. This is one of the best uses of technology. It's wonderful. There's still excellent days and challenging days. It's not perfect. So the amount of insulin I need changes every day, whether I'm stressed out or I have illness or what I ate or how well I slept. Or how I'm feeling. They say there's like at least 30 factors that affect blood glucose, and it's probably more like 100. Hormonal changes, all kinds of things. So even with all this technology, it's very rare to get 100% time in range. It's normal to have times where your blood glucose goes high, but as you can see, it auto corrects and it gets you back into range, and it can do a lot of that on its own. So it helps me to stay safe, and it's been very good. Let's talk a little bit more about the history here. So I mean, I started this off with when I was in Watkins Glen's on that family trip. But like a lot of people with LADA diabetes, it's not really like an overnight thing. It was actually a long time up until that moment where I had some like flaky pancreas. Like my body was probably already dealing with stuff for many years prior. I would say the story began at least 10 years earlier. I remember if I had a high sugar food like orange juice or like fast acting carbs like potato soup, I'd feel icky. I didn't feel good. My body wasn't handling that sugar very well. And then after exercise, sometimes I felt shaky, like I needed to eat something quickly, like my blood sugar was probably just dropping quickly. So I say my pancreas was being flaky. I had reactive hypoglycemia where blood sugar would drop after eating. And mood swings too. And could this have been from crashing blood sugar levels? They say that mood swings can be from blood sugar. So maybe there was a connection there. Was it mental illness or was it diabetes? It's an open question. Also recurrent yeast infections, and yeast infections are tied to high blood sugar. So even though early on, years and years ago, my fasting blood glucose test was fine, my A1C was fine, but my pancreas was not always working correctly all the time. It really felt like there was something going on for many years prior. So this latent slow onset of LADA diabetes, I think, is a common experience that people feel. Thank you. For more, please check out my book, Success with LADA Diabetes. You can scan the QR code here or go to lada-diabetes.com/book.